Welcome, Immortalites, to another round of the conversations. Today I have two very special guests. One is known for his animal-like work ethic, fierce loyalty, ability to poop everywhere, especially on Twitter. His handsome, furry mane. And then the other, of course, on the other end is Señor Hosky, the HOSKY Token. No, it's Vegas as well. So Carl from the Vegas pool, IT solutions architect, Cardano stake pool operator, proud dad, and family man, and frequent holiday taker as well, it seems.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
too many holidays.
Fellas, it's I joined the HOSKY, I'm not sure what you call it, ecosystem pretty early on. I think I was out by a week maybe. And I had been, me and Juan have been talking about you guys on the podcast and like the the project for quite a while now. And it's an absolute travesty that I haven't had you on before. And there was a precipitating event recently, which made me realize like I have to get you on. But we'll get to that in a minute. I think to start off with, I'll just maybe go to you, Carl, and you can sort of explain a little bit about. I've had Pete Bowie from the Learn Cardano podcast on before. That was conversation 64. So if anyone's interested in what Cardano is, I'd probably say go check that out first. But maybe if you could give just like a quick overview of the Cardano blockchain and what is a token on it, because that might help us to introduce what HOSKY is.
Yeah, certainly. So with the ADA Cardano network, basically, ADA being the native token that runs on Cardano. So basically, where you would have Ethereum, where you would have the ETH token plus some gas to move things around, on the Cardano network, it's slightly different. It works with just ADA, and ADA is both the gas or the transaction fee plus the coin itself. Now, on the chain, on the Cardano network, where you would go to Ethereum, it would create a new token. So you might want to create a new ERC21. It's a standard that they have on Ethereum. You would go in and create some smart contracts to actually make and form that coin. However, on the Cardano network, there's a different process and a different design and a methodology behind it. Basically, you create a new token using ADA, and you basically can mint a new token that actually has the same rights and properties as what the original ADA has. However, you give it some extra policy details. So there will be a stamp in there that gives it a very unique number in terms of the token itself. You can give it a name, you can give it a volume of how many coins you want to mint, and it also enables you to burn them as well, or create a policy where the token gets locked completely, or it can be left open so you can continually burn and create the tokens. But basically, there's no smart contracts level at all. There's no coding whatsoever on the Cardano network. You basically can create by the use of metadata and through the configuration scripts that Cardano give you, you can generate tokens. And there's two types of tokens, and that's before we carry on. One is the fungible, which is very popular, the non-fungible, the NFTs, and the fungible, those very much like we're going to go on to talk about HOSKY, where each one of those tokens are interchangeable. So it's like $1 or £1 or the Australian dollar. So you basically, you can have 10 in your pocket today, and you might want to buy something for $1 or £1. So you end up with 9 in your pocket, and you transfer the one over to somebody else. So you can got the two types. You've got the non-fungible, where there's one unique, and and that's where the value comes from, because obviously each one of those unique tokens can have a form of utility. And then from the second side, the fungible token, where generally they're used for exchange of money or exchange of a right for, say, an access into say a gig where there's 1,000 tickets issued, and you might issue 1,000 of those particular tokens relating to one aspect. Does that cover?
Yeah, that sounds great. And so that'll let us to introduce HOSKY. So I suppose, Hosky, what are like the basic details, the name, the number of tokens there are, the novelty, who are you, the creators, the why, maybe even the date created. That's a whole bunch there. So sort of just riff off of whatever you want from those.
Riff off, I'm good at that one. So the name was not Hosky to begin with. The initial name and image was totally different. It was Cardano at one point. There was a little Twitter DMs, a few Twitter DMs that happened where there was a project on Cardano that was called the Cardagos, and they said that we were infringing on their project. So, trying to not cause any problems when you're starting off, I was like, okay, fine, we'll let the community vote and decide on a new name. And it came down to Hosky and Attaboy, ADABOI, Ada and then boy. And personally, I was a fan of Attaboy the most. I was like, that's an awesome name. And I thought Hosky was stupid. So you heard it here first.
Yeah.
But the community thought otherwise. They actually loved Hosky. I personally try to stay away from, making it Hosky because of Hoskinson, because that's really, a Husky plus Hoskinson is where Hosky comes from. And the community decided that they wanted a Hosky. So we went from a corgi, which was the dog for Cardano, to the picture you see on your screen right now, which is Hosky. I was the one that designed this wonderful pixelated icon that is pretty much the extent of my artsy side. As far as the number of tokens, we started with 1 quadrillion with the intention of minting one other one. So we're actually at 1 quadrillion and 1. SHIB and most meme tokens do a 1 quadrillion number of tokens. So we decided we wanted to be the biggest pile of dung by comparison. So we had to mint one extra one. So it's 1 quadrillion and 1. And that is now, as far as what was the purpose behind Hosky, honestly, it was just to have fun. I've always thought meme tokens were stupid. I still do. And I would dare say Hosky is the stupidest. What did we promise? We've delivered on all our promises. So I do want to pat ourselves on the back on that. We are one of the few projects that has 100% delivered everything we promised. Reason being is we promised nothing. We also promised no value. We explained to people that this isn't something you want to buy. This isn't something you want to invest in because it's a meme token and you should never be investing in those. Yes, you hear stories of people winning or making millions from these sort of stupidity, but people need to understand that that is not the purpose of Hosky. It's more of an entertainment token. It's more of a let's go have fun with the community. And like somebody in the Discord always says, and actually they quoted me that Hosky is like herpes. It's meant to be shared. So it's easy to, share Hosky with people. You can make people millionaires in Hosky terms, not in dollar value. And it's just fun. It's a community. It's a token that is worthless. And to quote the infamous brown paper is we bring absolutely nothing to the table other than low quality doggo meme tokens. No technology, no promises of massive gains, just doggo memes. That literally is the summary of what Hosky is. And how do we do that? By being the premier low quality shitcoin doggo meme token on Cardano ecosystem. And to clarify, and this is on my Twitter bio, and it's always been there, and it'll probably always be there, is we are not shit. We are the shit. To clarify,
a good distinction.
Correct.
And the date you guys actually got all this together was, recent in terms of even like crypto world sort of things, because Bitcoin's been around for a decade now. It was are you at 6 months yet? It's a little bit over 6 months.
November 5th was when the token was created, and November 7th was when we started distributing it.
Yeah.
November 5th is a very special date for all those that don't know. It just happens to be Charles Hoskinson's birthday. So HOSKY token was minted on Hoskinson's birthday.
There you go. Okay, I didn't actually know that. That's a nice little bit of trivia there. All right. You talked a lot about promises there, and this is one of the questions I actually had for you, Carl, and this is, I suppose, I'm calling this I'm splitting this up for the two of you. So we have like the Philhoskophy. So there's like the philosophy of Hosky, and I'll direct those questions to you, Señor Hosky. And then there's the Techoskology, I guess, which is like the technology behind it. And I've been curious about coding for a while, and I've never actually done it myself. But I am interested in languages, and in particular, learning another language like Spanish or German. And it seems to me like writing code is similar to maybe creating another language or transferring things over. So I was wondering, are there ways of actually implementing promises into code? So if you say, we're only going to have 1 quadrillion HOSKY tokens, and then you decide, maybe we'll add 1001, and you know what, let's put an extra one, 1002. Is that possible, for example, right now? And how do you sort of see when you're trying to create something like a promise and putting that into code? How difficult is that? How easy is that? What sort of goes through your mind?
Yeah, so it depends. So it depends on the solution or the design and the specification of what you're going to use or create. So to put that in perspective, Cardano gives you that capability of a promise because it's built into the protocol. So the protocol says, if I want to create a token like we have done with the HOSKY, and we wanted to create 1 quadrillion at the start, but we wanted to add one more, what we had to say to ourselves is, how can we do that on the chain? So in this particular case, it's not me writing any code, except for writing some code to actually send the transaction into the chain to say, I want this. But the protocol on Cardano has a concept of a policy, and that policy says, when you create the policy, you can provide several different types of parameters. One of those is when it stops, when it expires, when you can't do anything else after that date, or everything can be before this date or during this period of time. So it's got these parameters where you can say, between this date, I can do something. And so that's what we did with the Cardano, with the token. What we said with the HOSKY token, we set it to an open policy, remembering this was back on the 5th of November. We created a policy that actually ran out on the 31st of 21, sorry. So it meant that we had the capability for 2 months to create tokens and burn them and do whatever we wanted with that token up until that 31st of December, New Year's Eve. And at the moment we went on to the 1st of January 22, that policy meant it became locked by the chain, and it's impossible, with the exception of managing to get everybody on the chain to roll the chain all the way back to pre the 1st of 22. The chain shows, and there are tools that you can go to that can show you for a given policy ID, when does it lock? Now, some projects will remain completely open, and there are other projects that will set the date to 2 years' time. So it all depends on what the project wants to do. But coming back to your question, from a promise on the Cardano chain, we can use a policy, and that is your promise. That is your thing that governs you. It's the proof that says, after that date, to do anything on the Cardano with that particular token, because the token is pinned to the policy ID, and that policy has this set of rules. The Cardano protocol states for the HOSKY token, because we've now gone past that time and that date, we can't now do anything with those coins. And that was the important part where we had to make a decision. From the November the 5th right up until, I think it was only the day before the policy locked, we had 1 quadrillion created, but we needed to create the one extra. And there was a reason for not only having that +1, we also had to set the image of the token. We hadn't, up until that stage, if you'd gone and looked, tools that in the ecosystem that you can go to would show the image of that token, but we hadn't actually finalized it. We hadn't finalized it for, dare I say, the DEXs. The DEXs use, the decentralized exchanges use another standard to show the icon. So we hadn't locked any of that in. So we did that at the last minute with that single one extra token. We were able to mint that token, change its metadata, and that metadata tells other systems what that token actually means. And it's basically a free form set of fields that you can say, and it can say the name, the color, or the number or quantity, or something else that you want to provide details to. But ultimately, that's where, from a Cardano point of view, that promise is locked in by a policy, and that policy then drives what you can create underneath it. So for our instance, we created the single HOSKY token under that policy.
Yeah, interesting. So does that one token that you did right at the end, is that as fungible as all of the other ones? So is there now 1 quadrillion and one identical ones, or is there 1 quadrillion plus one, which is slightly different?
Yep. So on the physical chain, you can go back and look at the minting transactions, and you'll find there are 2. So you can use tools to go and see them. And the first one was that 1 quadrillion with some metadata, and then that single one extra is counted on the chain because it's under the same policy ID and the same name for the token. They're all as exchangeable as each other. So we could send you the entire set, and you would have 1 quadrillion and 1 in there. On that last transaction, the protocol standard in the specifications we use says all the tools use the very last transaction that was minted. So that last detail that we provided is the new law, is the new rule. And because we now can't update it because it's locked, that's why it's all beautiful, because we now can't do anything. So one mechanism that's really good on the chain, on the Cardano chain, is you can mint transactions and you can also burn them. However, once you've gone past that policy lockout, you can't burn them either via normal means. So you can physically remove them completely from the network. But in our case, they are permanently there. And with like the Ethereum model, there was actually an address that I've created with a locked policy that we now use as a burn address, and we can send tokens to that address. And because it goes into that policy that's locked, it's impossible to move any ADA or any other token that ends up in that wallet. So we can have this pseudo burn, but the chain itself, as far as it's concerned, those tokens still exist and the ADA in that address exists. It's just impossible for anybody to move it. And we've proven I published the public keys. So just to show to everybody in the world that if you've got these keys, you still can't move them. This is now the proof that they're burnt.
Yeah, okay, that's super cool. With related to the policy as well, so you've got the policy, and in that section where it was open-ended and you could still, that 2-month window.
Yeah.
How was it that, how many people had access, I guess, to the policy in a way? So was it just you, and how does that work? Is it related to similar things that we all know, like public keys and private keys?
Yeah, it's exactly based on, it's the same as if you go into any of the wallets and you go and create a key with the secret keys that you would have, your word list. Slightly different when you technically get under the covers. It actually works with just simple IDs and values that end up in a configuration file. But ultimately, those files, the seed secrets, are generated by the chain. So you can run via the command lines that Cardano give you, and this will be common across all chains. Will have tools that you can use to create a wallet. So you would create the policy in a very similar way to a wallet that you generate, and that gives you 2 files. It gives you a verifying key, and it also gives you a secret key. And with those 2, you then create a policy ID, and that policy is another file that exists and a set of rules. And all 3 end up linked together. So you sign the policy with a secret key to say, I've got the authorization to be able to create things under this policy. But the policy, once it gets to its endpoint, can't continue. So even though I've got access to the secret key, the policy is just set in time. It's almost like a flag in the stone, in a flag in time, to say once somebody goes past this point in time, thou cannot do anything else to anything that is linked to that policy.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I didn't even realize that you had the ability to almost, I guess, play with the rules for a bit, and then you can finally fix it in and set in stone. Nice.
And that is the biggest worry, because the other thing you pointed about was who had access. That's the biggest worry. So with projects, that's where it would solely have been myself. If Hosky had asked, can he have access? That's what we would do. I also have worked with other projects and other community members around, and that is one of the biggest problems that you have in this industry, or certainly in the Cardano space, is that when projects want to work with third parties or other service providers, sometimes that exchange of the key has to occur. Or what's now beautiful that's coming out is you can get multi-signature keys. So you don't necessarily have to have everybody own the key. You can all have one, and you can have rules that says, as long as, say, 2 or 3 people sign that transaction, that will then process through. So the concept of one person having to hold the keys to the entire project is starting to disappear now. It's starting to get better control.
Yeah, and that's getting into, I suppose, some more of the philosophy stuff related to trust, related to how do humans interact, how are there ways of using technology to, I suppose, make our own interactions better, safer, and almost like create the world we want. So I'll jump back over to you, Hosky. It seems you're doing quite a few different things with the actual HOSKY token as well. So I jumped in just as much as anyone for the laughs. It's a stupid coin. Funnily enough, though, it was one of the first times I was really doing things with the Cardano network. So I'd sort of only really gotten into it a couple of months earlier, and I remember not being terrified, but being very unsure when I was about to send 2 ADA to a random address, and it's like, what's going to happen here? And it seems like after that you've I don't know, what I'm sort of seeing are things like the promotion of decentralization, supporting smaller stake pools, securing the network. I'm wondering how do you see the HOSKY token with regards to, I guess, almost the serious stuff behind the memes as well?
Right. So, obviously, this all started as what it should be, just something fun, something for everybody to be able to use. And like you mentioned, having to send 2 ADA before getting a token, that can be a little nerve-wracking, because, you should never send ADA to anybody that you don't know, especially if they are promising you anything. So it doesn't matter what they're promising you. If you say, hey, send me your ADA and I'll send you something back, you got to be very careful. So first off, don't send your ADA to strangers. It's kind of like you don't give your credit card number to a random person that calls you over the phone and says, hey, you owe me this, let me have your credit card number. No, you should be the one that does the research. What's the common term in crypto? Trust but verify. That you should always do. Now, the reason that we went with 2 ADA was because it's a small number, obviously. So people are, going to be a little more less worried that they're going to be losing large amounts of money. Not only that, but we wanted it to make sure that it was very grindy, which was, I think, what made the Doggie Bowl so popular. Doggie Bowl being what we called the address that you sent the 2 ADA that would then send you a random amount of HOSKY back. And we didn't want it to be easy to say, hey, I'm going to send 1,000 ADA and I'm going to get 500 of these transactions back. Could we have done that? Yes. Would it have been better for us? Probably, because we could have, sent back 1.5 ADA with, 500 transactions attached to it. And we could have, kept 500 ADA. But we didn't want that. We wanted it to be as difficult as possible for people to get their hands on HOSKY, meaning you literally have to have no life and sit there sending 2 ADA over and over and over again. or else you would, you would have to be very dedicated. Eventually, or I should say at the time, Nami wallet, I don't believe was around. So it was actually Yoroi for the most part, or if Nami was around, it was very, very like new. So you were using Yoroi. And if you've used Yoroi in the last few months, you understand how slow that can be.
Oh yeah.
So it was a pain. And so it was either Yoroi or Daedalus, I believe, at the time.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the reasoning or why we did what we did. So at first, or during that time, there's always been a debate about decentralization and whether a single individual having multiple pools, or a single entity, I should say, either or, is beneficial. And the head scientist at IOG has pretty much directly stated that if somebody is taking a pool and splitting it into multiple pools, that is a civil attack. And people choose to ignore it or choose to dismiss that, which I think, if we, like we were talking about code, and if the lead scientist is giving you a certain direction or a certain advice, I think we should, be willing to speak up about it. But what was happening in the ecosystem at the time is that smaller stake pools were complaining about the bigger stake pools that had more than one pool. And oftentimes they were dismissed by the bigger stake pools as, oh, they're just the hateful little guy that's jealous. And when this conversation came up, I've always been passionate about Cardano. I've been in it since 2017. When this conversation came up, I decided to, speak out and give my opinion on it. And in this case, it was that I agreed that that decentralization should be priority. That's one of the reasons we are, or I am, in this ecosystem, is because we're trying to push the power to the edges, meaning giving people power. Unlike Web 2.0, the current financial system, where it's centered around central institutions like banks. And so I decided to speak up and give my opinion on that. Well, the one thing that usually was used to dismiss the pool was, hey, you're the annoying little pool, or the small little jealous pool. Well, I don't have a pool. And then that's when somebody asked me to show my ID to prove that I didn't have a pool, which was hilarious, because anonymity, I think, is also an important thing about crypto as a whole. Who is Satoshi Nakamoto? Nobody can tell you that. Am I comparing myself to him? Oh, heck no. He was actually smart. I'm not. But that was another discussion that came out of that. Now, HOSKY as a whole has been used, I think, to educate a lot of people. Like you said, you started doing a lot of stuff on the network that normally you wouldn't have. So before HOSKY, people were minting NFTs, trading NFTs, escrow back in the day. Eventually, we had marketplaces without smart contracts like CNFT.io. Then JPEG Store came around and took over when they implemented smart contracts, to make it easy to trade. So it was all related to, trading collectibles, I guess we can say. When HOSKY came about, you had to, first off, interact with the chain. So you had to send the ADA. Later on, we then had the option for you to stake your ADA to earn additional HOSKY. So you had to learn, how to have your wallet staked. Some people hadn't staked in their entire, Cardano existence, which means you're missing out on the ADA rewards. Staking itself, obviously, the reason you should stake is not for HOSKY. The reason you should stake is because it helps decentralize the network, and it also helps to earn 4 to 5% extra ADA per year. I mean, it's free money in a way, so why wouldn't you do it? It's free ADA. Not only that, once we brought the NFTs into the game, and we also gave you the option to stake those, then you now have to make a decision. You can now create multiple wallets because different pools that we're working with have different traits. So guess what? You now can create multiple wallets. Well, what does having multiple wallets teach you is that you can actually take your ADA as well as your tokens, in this case, the HOSKY NFTs, you can actually split them up into multiple pools. So you don't have to stick to a single pool. You can actually help multiple pools by having multiple wallets. Some wallets make it very easy, like Eternal and like Nami. They actually support creating secondary addresses within one single set of private keys. And I think I've seen you post that you have like 17 wallets for 17 pools, because that's how many pools HOSKY currently has. I'm not sure if it was you, but I've seen
no, that's not me. That's
screenshots.
That's another degenerate. But
Yeah.
big props up to them. I'm
Yeah,
at
there are people
measly 2 or 3.
Okay, there are people that have 17 different wallets to have one wallet per each one of the pools that we work with. And these pools obviously have different traits. But again, so besides from that, it's been about getting people to use the chain. And I mean, people used it early on with the Doggie Bowl. I remember this is always going to be in my mind. The first epic that we had with HOSKY, and the chain for the first time ever broke 1 million transactions in a single epic. And it made the news. There were headlines about it. Cardano breaks 1 million. And at the time, the entire credit went to a specific entity that had some voting going on related to ice cream. And we were like, well, cool. They're all getting all the credit. We were kind of like, oh, there's no, people. Some of the excuses used were like, well, people changed their vote. And there was 30,000 people that voted. So that's quite a few number of transactions. But to hit 1 million from 30,000 people changing their vote multiple times, those are some undecisive people. So, that was kind of hilarious, but we knew better. So we shut down Doggie Bowl.
Yeah, because we also knew in the Doggie Bowl, didn't we? We could see there was like 1.4 million transactions that had flowed in and out, and it was within that time frame. It's like, hang on a minute.
Right. And then at that time, we decided that we couldn't handle the demand, honestly. It was ridiculous. Yeah. Like, we were like 3 days behind. So it would literally take 3 days for a transaction to clear.
There was a night when I nearly had a heart attack when I looked at it and thought, how are we ever going to get through this?
So it was interesting. So we decided to shut it down at the end of that particular epic. We're like, you know what? We're going to take it down for an entire epic. Actually, we're going to take it down for a day or two. But we decided, you know what? Let's just take it down for the entire epic. We'll pick it up the following epic, and we'll go from there. Well, what ended up happening is once that change, or once that epic went through, I believe it was that particular epic where IOG increased the block size. So we decided, okay, let's just wait until the block size takes effect. Then we will throw the Doggie Bowl back on, and then we will get a clean reading as to how many transactions are being processed, because there is no more ice cream swap to worry about and saying that their transactions were the ones causing this. So we waited. The Doggie Bowl was brought up. The queue was instant. Vegas had actually split the Doggie Bowl, so where we were sending out, I think, 6 times as much as what we were doing before to keep up with the demand. It still didn't work for the longest time. I think it still put us behind like a good 12 hours or so, but the demand wasn't as bad. And when that particular epic ended, which I believe it was epic 306, the chain hit 1.495 million transactions. So we're talking 1.5 million transactions. And through some undisclosed connections that I have, it was confirmed to me, officially, unofficially, that the reason for the block increase was actually due to HOSKY. So we can say that the first ever increase on the network was our fault. So if nothing else came out of HOSKY, is we started pushing for the network, the chain to start changing to increase the block size because of the number of transactions that were going through.
Yeah. And it's important. So the chain at the time, we were processing around 25,000 transactions an hour. So we cleared that 300,000 backlog within about 10, 12 hours. I don't think anybody else had done that on the chain, but we constantly get this rhetoric from people saying the chain doesn't work in the speeds that is scalable. So from our point of view, if you do the math though, when you work it back, that was 400 a minute or so, or 416. And then when you then go down to the seconds, it's about, of all the numbers that we've got, it's about 6.9 transactions per second. But that was back before Christmas. That was way back before they changed the size of the transactions, of which, if I wanted to, I know I can scale out my process. And that's what a lot of projects are doing now. So I just wanted to make sure that was understood. Even back in November, that's the type of scale we were running at.
Yeah, and man, this covers so many things that I just love, which is, I guess, like real world action. There's so much talk. There's so much I'm going to do this, I'll do that, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas, HOSKY is one of those ones which it over delivers and under promises, and like there are literally zero promises, so it's so easy to over deliver.
Yeah.
And there was one thing I did want to touch on, which was Hosky, you're talking about how it doesn't make sense to leave your ADA on an exchange, for example. And you're right. If you're rationally speaking, it doesn't make sense to do that. But there are some things where it's rational but not reasonable. So one, for example, is like owning a home. You can own a home, and it makes rational sense money wise to take a loan out on that, use that loan to make more money from your capital, sort of thing, rather than have all of it just bundled up into this home which isn't making money. But if it's for personal reasons, security of owning a house, it's physically yours, no one can take it away from you. It can be not rational, I guess, in terms of numbers speaking, but it can be reasonable to keep it there. And one thing I like really about Hosky is I noticed myself making changes to my own behavior and to people even around me. Like Juan, for example, I could be as rational as I wanted with him, talking about how it doesn't make sense. Like just get it off the exchange. There's no downside. Like you were saying, there's no downside to getting it off the exchange. And what it actually took was, a very kind message from Vegas here to actually explain to Juan. And it was because, you're from a different area. You're from the Hosky world, for example. And so it took like an outside voice to break into his world and be like, oh, okay, I'll actually do that. And, let alone like we've been best friends for, I don't know, 15 plus years. I've known him since high school, and my words obviously carry no weight. And then Vegas comes in and bam, gets it done. I love that. And then similar with me, I had my ADA staked with a pretty large pool. I was there for the sort of, in there because of the Sunday rewards that I was going to get from that. And I ended up switching to a smaller pool, helping the network because of the silly meme token, which I know it doesn't make sense rationally for me to have actually gone from the bigger pool to the smaller one, but sort of reasonably, it's more fun. I get a bunch of HOSKY tokens. Like what's there's like no downsides for that as well. So I do want to just say, like, one thing I really love about HOSKY is it changes behavior in a way of like making people do good things, even though there might be some incentives for them to do not worse things or bad things, but like suboptimal. It's not optimal for a couple of pools to conglomerate all of the ADA, and you guys have created a project of dare I say a movement that is incentivizing people to do things that they might not perhaps otherwise. And I'm just wondering, are there any other examples that you can think of where you've seen changes in behavior of people because of HOSKY, and in a like a positive way, and maybe in even a negative way? I guess it's sometimes good to throw light on the good and the bad. And I'll let either of you take that.
Yeah, as far as positives, I can see that I would say that there's been a lot more discussion, a lot more open discussion on Twitter or other means of communications regarding decentralization, regarding blatant problems that Cardano has. One thing I've always said is you will always find me poking or pointing out issues I see. There is no censorship. I don't censor anything. I don't try to please anybody. There's no investors for me to appease. There's no money funding us that says, oh, you can't say that because that's not correct, or that may not even be politically correct, or politically correct in a sense of Cardano, like, hey, that you're causing FUD. Originally, they did accuse us of, causing FUD about the chain when we brought up the SPO debate, the multi-pool versus the single pool. And I'm like, listen, my ADA bags before Cardano, before HOSKY, were decent in size. I wouldn't want to be FUD the chain that I'm invested in. Number one. Number two is if I wanted to FUD, I guess I could, but it wasn't, and that was never the intention. It was more like, hey guys, if we see blatant problems on Cardano, we can't turn a blind eye to them. It doesn't make them go away, so they need to be addressed. And so that was, I think, one of the biggest positives, was the fact that people were now more open to discussing what before was frowned upon, or was a blind eye was turned to it, or was just ignored. And like I mentioned, I took shots at anything I see that I think is inappropriate. There's been, I did joke about someday swap because they kept delaying it. People didn't like that. I joked with ADA handle because they kept delaying. I joked about many other projects that have happened, like Coco Loco, because of the rug pull. And the thing is, some sections of the community loved when I poked fun at something, but when it came to what you idolize on Cardano, then it becomes a problem. So they love it when you're making fun of something, or making a joke, or honestly sometimes it's directly calling out issues. But as soon as it's a project that they're invested in or something that they believe in, they do the same thing that was being done with Cardano for a long time. They turn a blind eye to it, or they don't want it to be pointed out. And I think it's healthy for any project, for any ecosystem, to address those issues that are the elephant in the room, the skeleton in the closet. There's a quote I always post when stuff is about to get spicy for me, because it's takes that people don't want to hear, is, I point at elephants in the rooms, I dance with skeletons in closets, and I make a mockery of heroes. There's some people that have been elevated in the community that people don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole, because, oh no, if I do that, that's like, what do you call it? Cardano Twitter suicide. They're going to not look at me the same way. We shouldn't have that. Every person that's part of the Cardano community, if they are doing something that is inappropriate, something that is shady, we should be okay with calling them out. And I give everybody permission. If you see us doing anything shady, please call us out. That's what it should be about. I am more willing to, I'm willing to dish out the criticism, but I'm also willing to receive it. And I think that's what we lack, honestly, as the world, is we're very quick to point out issues other people have, but whenever somebody points out our issues, we get defensive about it. And if you are going to dish something out, you should also be able to receive it. And, is everything going to be accurate? No, maybe some stuff is made up, but we should, be willing to take a hard look at ourselves and say, hey, is their concern valid? And if so, how do we address it?
100%. I was actually going to bring up that quote because I bloody love it. Where's that actually from?
So it's like a spoken word artist that has like a rap song. His name is Propaganda, and the song itself is called Andrew Mandela. And that dude is like a wordsmith. Like, I love his music because he just puts words in a way that you're like, wow, that is like, I've never thought about it. And he addresses a lot of different things, like social issues. He addresses religion. He addresses so many different things. But when you really stop and listen to his words, I'm a words person. So I'll listen to any kind of music, rap, rock, country, whatever. I don't care. I'm all about the words. It's the words that speak to me. And this dude is like amazing. Like, he's got a gift when it comes to putting thoughts to music, to song, to poetry. It's like poetry, basically. So I would highly recommend people listen to him. That's where that quote comes from. So no, it's not my original thing. I'm too stupid for that.
Beautiful. No, there's good. I wasn't expecting to get song and music recommendations here, but I do appreciate it. And I definitely will have to check them out. Let's go on to you were talking before about people who are almost like too big to be criticized, or like they're too important in a way. And I'm going to bring this back to you, Carl, and you're like reporting in the systems and everything that you do for HOSKY. How badly would things break if you took a like permanent holiday? So you've been going off on little jaunts here and there for a couple of weeks at a time and whatnot. But if you were to jump away, what would happen to the HOSKY system?
Yeah, so it's a very good question, and it's something that both HOSKY and I have. What we are trying to address right now, because what people have to remember is it's only been 4, 5, 6 months. And I've been through 3 or 4 lifetimes now. I'm a veteran from the IT industry, and I've never known anything like what we've done or what this project is got to. So yes, the majority, well, all the code is pretty much written bespoke by myself and created and written. So we're just in that process right now of laying the foundations of actually bringing this into something that will be managed by a wider team and a bigger piece. So the first point of call is I'm desperately putting the bases down for a website, because ultimately that's what, as an IT architect, my forte was around e-commerce systems, so building websites and anything with payment systems involved. That's why this marriage between Hosky and I have worked really well. Actually, he's come in and said, I've got this idea. And I said, no, you're a madman. And then we've taken it one step. And then the community have really said, you want it. If you want it, you can have it. But obviously there was no design, there was no plan, there was no expectations, even from myself, to actually have a system and a solution that's going forward. So yeah, you are right now. As people know, when I go away on holiday, and this is something that my wife has actually made me do since just before Hosky, really. It was something to do with all the other NFT projects I've been involved with. I've had a massive year from a point of view of being involved with projects I can talk about, projects I can't, projects that have just come in and asked for simple things, projects coming in for mass minting. So from my point of view, my wife turned around and said, you can't work 18 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week on all these projects. So she's forced me into every month we're having one weekend off where I just basically turn everything off, go away, come back, and then I can pick up again. So you are right at the moment. And there is a trip next week that I'm really excited about. You may have heard that Hosky and I are actually meeting up in Vegas, and that was something that I'd already planned with 7 friends of mine. I'm bringing over to the Vegas. It's a bit of a celebration of where I am with what I'm doing. So we're going in, and Hosky actually said, well, he'll meet up with us. So I think he's gate crashed me, but fair enough. But from the moment of next Monday, I will have to shut down for 5 days. And as people will know, I also run a pool. My pool runs in a hosted environment, and I had time to build that up, and that's got security around it and controls and implementation around it to safeguard it whilst it's online and it's in a hosted, but a private hosted environment. So I haven't gone to cloud, I've gone to a private. And the whole idea is I'm now going to be able to migrate the Hosky elements, so these staking processes, and at the same time build a website out that will actually then interconnect. And instead of people having to go and say, where's the PDF? They'll be able to go to the website, and they'll actually be able to do the what if scenarios, and they'll be able to connect their wallet to it, and they will be able to see, if I do X, Y, and Z, I could potentially get this, or I could do that. Now, we talk about the value is not the important part here. Is there are some other concepts that I want to, and I know Hosky and I have talked about certain things I don't want to disclose here. Once we've got a functional website, there are many other things and many other scopes we can bring together that can take us forward in a project. So it's not just a one-off, we've just had that token and so forth, but we can build out like many of the other projects have done. But what they've done is they've come and they've grabbed the money first. They've put these white papers out to say, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. But I've always been in the IT industry where I only like to publicize something when it's built, when it's ready, when somebody can actually take it and use it. And that's something that's really ingrained in me. And again, it's why our partnership works, because I am really the serious guy in terms of, if I don't think it's right, my fairness switch will go off and I won't want to touch it. And I know there's been times when I've said to people, well, we can't do that, where I may have overstepped the mark. But from my point of view, it's got to be legitimate. It's got to be something that it's going to work for, not only for myself and for Hosky, but for the community as well. If it's not going to work, then let's hide it away. So coming back to your question, at the moment, if I was to walk away, I won't say it, but I am flying next week, then there is an element of this that's still at risk at the moment. And I haven't had the time to stop and actually fill that void that needs to be filled, if you know what I mean, and get that into a position that we get people managing the site and managing the solution. I've got the people behind me that can come in and do that now, but it's a case of building that system. And I think we're a couple of months away, or 2 or 3 months away, before that can be put fully into place.
For sure. You sound very similar to me, which is like I've only probably in the past month or two really considered marketing the podcast itself, because I wasn't happy. Like I was like, oh, I could do better. I could make the videos better. I could make the audio quality better, the timing wise, like all those sorts of things. And just me personally, I do really appreciate that sort of do the actions first and then speak about it afterwards, which I was saying before. The under promising, over delivering. Like that's one of the reasons why I suppose I joined in and really enjoy this. There was, I'm going to say, 2 observations that you made just there, and one question that I have from all of that. Number one is Hosky and Vegas confirmed marriage. So I'm not sure how your wife's going to feel about that, and you're eloping to Vegas as well. So that's beautiful. Crap, I've forgotten the other observation, but the question I had for you is, do you think it'll sort of become like an open source code at some point? Is that sort of what you're leaning towards with the website and whatnot?
So it's an important question, that one, because I'm nuts and bolts going back right the way back. I'm a businessman. I am, believe it or not, the Hosky. So let's take Hosky off the table for a second. For the last year.
Sorry, Hosky, you're going in the corner, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Put him in the corner. Since the end of July, I finished with a big project in the UK. We had the last census of 21, and I was an IT architect consultant to ONS in the UK to help lead that census solution. And I designed, as an architect, one fundamental part of about 6 or 7 pieces that all shaped and came together to make it a very successful census. But at the same time, obviously, Cardano came along and allowed me to mint projects. So part-time, I was working for a UK company. And at the same time, I had people coming to me saying, oh, I've got this NFT project, and can you do the minting? Can you help us get the sales distribution going? And how do we do X, Y, and Z? How do we know the specification for the metadata? What do you think on X, Y, and Z? So I've been charging my services out as a consultant from my company to these different these different organizations and projects. But at the same time, I've been building up my own daughter, so Jess Art, which you may or may have not heard of. I had that concept. So we borrowed that concept to the 2 ADA because we did that with her first. So you'll see now projects using this 2 ADA, Send 2 ADA or 5 ADA. But I was doing this back in, I think it was April last year. I had that concept actually ground out. Now, my problem is I could release and open source that code. But at the same time, I then cut the specialization I'm working in, the field and the area that I am. So from a website going forward with the token, with HOSKY Token, if we can find ways that the website itself and the token enables to pay me, and we're getting to the levels now that there is a salary ability to take, because what you've got to remember is what we're trying to do is we're reploughing all this ADA back into the pools, the 17 pools around us. So we start dipping our hands into that money, it disappears, and then the whole concept doesn't work. So, but there has to be a dividing sign. As a businessman, I have to earn some money to do it. And if we can make the HOSKY solution in a way that I can continue to earn money because I've got, as everybody else says, I've got a family that has to depend on me. Then from that point of view, then there is potential that certain bits and pieces could be open sourced or licensed, or alternative, I just continue working as I do directly 2 different projects. So from my point of view, in an ideal world, it would be lovely to open source, but at the same time, I'm almost cutting my own throat for doing so. So there has to be a trade-off between what are the benefits for me doing it for the community versus me actually losing a revenue stream, etc. If that makes sense. So from my point of view, I would love to open source, but from the other side, and I'm going to make it very, very clear, absolutely every line of code that's been used from last March to now, with the exception of obviously the command line that IOHD give us and the DB sync, the components, everything else is written by me. So absolutely from ground up. So I've not borrowed libraries, I'm not using any. So there are a lot of open source libraries out there. But as a professional, I've written my own, I've created my, and that again comes down to the fact that when I worked for a big IT corporate company for about 23, I worked for a big IT company for 23 years, and there was always a risk around open source and borrowing and using libraries and then finding out licenses would change. So again, from my point, I have that paranoia that if I don't write it, if I don't own it, then I'm always at that risk that someone can come in and say, right, you're using that library and we want this money, or we want you to stop using that. So from my point of view, I'm in that quandary. I'd love to open source it, but I do like to earn, like people are mechanics, people work in restaurants or whatever that is. For me, I build systems. I'm an IT architect and I design solutions, and the wrapper underneath of that as a good architect is I'm also a programmer and a developer, and between the two of those, that's where my skill comes from. So I don't know if that answers you, but from my point of view, I'm still on that fence. Do I or don't I? And many people often come to me and said, well, why don't I give that script that takes the to Ada and sends it back? Why don't I give that away? But it's like, well, I give that to you as a person. Then where do I? Now, there are some arguments I could put some licensing in and I could take some fees from them using it. That has gone through my mind, but it's very easy to turn those things off. And from my experience in the open source software community, if you give a toggle in there or a piece of code, those configurations change and then you don't see the fee and you'll never see it. But that's where I've gone through the Plutus program. So I started that on the very first wave and never completed it. I was just too busy. But a lot of the code that I do right now could be a smart contract. And I think we're starting to see that already. And that's where my evolution is, to move into the smart contract world and then by all means open source it anyway, because I could tie in that fee and it would be fixed in that fee.
Yeah.
So again, it's just what's actually happened is sorry, I didn't mean to overtalk you. From 2017, when I came in, I always knew I was going to be involved in Cardano as much as possible, full time. And when there was an announcement of assets back in early 19, I think it was, there was a mention that assets will come as the first wave of smart contract era. So the whole of the era's gone out of my head now. Anyway, as part of that era. So I said to myself, if I'm going to get into this ecosystem, what are people going to need? And I said to myself, and I looked at it back in 19 and said, big projects are going to come along and they want to mass produce and they want to quickly get them out the door. And that's where I find myself in. And that's where Hosky's then come along and said, can we do this? And at the sideline, I already had all the scripts. I had all the processes. I can't host it anywhere at the moment because it's not production ready for it. But I was ready for this wave of work. And I've always said to people that have asked me that I do expect my time will end soon because other projects have caught up, or you now have the brilliant NFT maker website that you can go. So the small projects can go there and even the bigger projects can go there soon and provide spreadsheets to do the data of the policy. But I always knew I had this finite amount of time to get my business earning money to a point, and then I can become self-sustained.
Yeah. I think what you're addressing there is almost, I'm fascinated by this concept of paradox, which is, two things can be true at the same time. And you can frame this either way. You could say, what you're doing would be like a compromise, i.e. like, oh, you're not open sourcing the the code, which I assume you're more a fan of than not. But I sort of look at it as more confronting reality. If you get cancer and you're trying to be the greatest gymnast in the world, you can't ignore the cancer. Like you gotta deal with that, and that a lot of times will mean you're not going to become the greatest gymnast, and then you have to figure out what to do from there. But I think the HOSKY token, this is like the core of the Philhoskophy, which is the paradox, which is it's almost like you're all talk and no bite in many ways, Señor Hosky, which is we're going to rug you. This is a meme coin. Like it is not the shit, it is the shit, but it's also zero and it's going to stay zero forever. I want to ask a guess again. How do you sort of see the balance that you've got going between calling people idiots, but also being almost fanatically devoted to them and doing everything you can to, if there's problems, fix them. You keeping your promises to idiots. That's kind of a weird thing to be doing, very paradoxical. So how do you sort of see the mix and match of those couple of things there?
Well, I mean, I think part of what you said is being instead of being it is more of like keeping the transparency, besides the PNG joke I always make, but just being transparent about what we're doing, being transparent, being honest. Honesty, I think, has gone a long way to make us as successful as we have been. By that, I mean, in the early days, people, when we first started, honestly, within the first week, we had people offering us tens of thousands of ADA, if not hundreds of thousands of ADA, to get a shortcut, kind of like over-the-counter HOSKY, because there were some people that wanted to get that much HOSKY for some reason. Again, those are our community are idiots. These are like geniuses, apparently. And they wanted to, bypass the grind of the Doggie Bowl. And we basically, I personally took a screenshot, removed their name, and blasted them on social media. Be like, no, guys, there are no shortcuts with HOSKY. You got to do it like everybody else. And I mean, keep in mind at that time when this happened, we didn't have the ridiculous number of transactions yet. So it was still very early on. If I am being extremely honest, the first day of HOSKY, we had like, I don't know, a few thousand transactions. And we're like, wow, that was impressive. That we can call this a success for a few thousand transactions, not even 10,000. Then the following day, we had like 10,000. The following day, like 30,000. And it just exponentially grew. So this was early on when when we weren't sure if the project was going to be quote unquote a success. So being offered tens of thousands of ADA when you're starting, I'm going to be honest, it was difficult to say no because there is that financial incentive behind it. But we're like, you know what? We're going to be straight up about it. We're not going to do none of this. So let's blast them on social media to tell them there are no shortcuts. Later on, people were being idiots and sent us 5,000 ADA instead of sending 2. They sent us all their assets instead of sending 2. One guy, I felt bad for him, sent us 106,000 ADA. And this was before, and actually it was literally as Vegas had gone to bed. So he had to wait until the morning. And I can guarantee you this poor guy, he was from the Chinese community, was probably, I would have been pooping my pants for the entire time because I just sent somebody at the time almost $150,000 worth of ADA. And I told him, hey, I know sounds horrible. I'm like, the developer just went to bed. He's the one with the keys to the wallet. Do not worry. Whenever he's awake, he'll get it back to you. And sure enough, obviously we've always been honest since the beginning. So we refunded him the 106,000 ADA that he sent in. And, honestly, I think that goes a long way, is just being honest about it. When people asked us early on, what are your plans? I'm like, what plans? We didn't expect to be where we were at 2 weeks in. So I've mentioned it before, but within a week or two of us being live, we already had centralized exchanges reaching out to us wanting to get the token listed. But we basically turned them down and told them, we're not ready for this. We just can't do this right now. Come back again later, or at first the exchanges wanted like ridiculous amounts of money for them to get listed. Well, we don't have that money. They were asking us for $150,000 that we didn't have. And we made it clear to them, hey, if you guys want the token, we'll give you the token, but we're not providing anything, no liquidity. We're not giving you any USDT, which is usually what they ask for. And they all went away at that point. Eventually, some came along and they said, okay, well, we'll take the token now. You don't have to pay anything else. So we're like, okay, well, just like we did with drip drops, just like we did with vending machine, I'm like, here's some tokens. Do with them as you please. And that's kind of what ended up happening. That's how we got onto the one central exchange we're on. As far as the DEXs go, that's all community driven, which also needs to be a warning to the community. It's great that you trust us, and we really, really appreciate that. We have no intentions of dumping, 100 trillion on you to clear out the liquidity on MinSwap, which at one point got close to like 900,000 ADA. But when you are providing liquidity for any project, please look to see where all of the tokens are concentrated. Yeah. Because it's very easy for us to literally take that 600,000-700,000 ADA that is currently in MinSwap by taking, like, say, the 200 to be determined wallet, or what I joke around as being the to be dumped wallet, and then cleaning out that liquidity. So that means you will lose all of your ADA and you will get worthless HOSKY. Now, I know some of you actually want us to do that because it would be an easy way for you to get HOSKY, but we're not. So you got to be very careful with DeFi in general, with providing liquidity. Impermanent loss is a thing. And if you have never learned about impermanent loss, Vegas is an expert now with what happened to one of his tokens.
Thanks for that.
He made a lot of tokens earlier on, but he left them there over the weekend that he went away. And when he came back to like almost nothing, wow. Or at least like half of what he had. So there are valuable lessons to be learned when it comes to DeFi. And again, it's good to trust a team, but please be very careful because you will get rugged eventually. And to clarify, I just wanted to clarify this. We have never promised a rug. Okay, so you said that we had promised to rug. We haven't. We've just simply taken polls and the community wants to be rugged. So if it does ever happen, it will be a democratic rug. The community will vote to get rugged. We don't intend to actually rug anybody. So let's not spread misinformation that we've promised rugs when we have not. Still to this day, we do not own a rug. I submitted a Catalyst proposal. They ignored it. So there is no money for a rug.
Yeah, that was great. It would have been a nice fancy rug as well. Yeah, I saw that. I'll add my own tad bit of financial advice while we're on the topic, which is, only put in what you can afford to lose, like especially in this. You say, in the early days of HOSKY as if that was a long time ago, but it was less than 6 months.
Not even, right. And that's the thing with crypto, though. It's like 1 week in crypto is almost like a month, if not a year's worth of time, it feels like. Because the last 6 months, I feel like I've done more work than, the previous decade of my corporate life, which is funny, but time in crypto moves much faster than it does with your regular everyday life.
100%. And you brought it up, so this will tie in with what I was referring to right at the start. The April Fool's rug joke that you played was. It was so good. Like, look, I'll take something away from you, which is I am extremely credulous is the word. I'm not particularly gullible, but credulous. I tend to take people at their word, just as an offhand thing. So I did get fooled, I think, another one or two times that April Fool's. But your execution, Vegas, you sold it perfectly on Twitter as well. That moment of like. It was funny because, referring to Paradox again, I barely have anything invested, and even using that word with you guys is with HOSKY, it seems it really puts like the idiot stamp on my forehead when I use those two in a sentence. But the feeling I got when I was like, shit, they actually have rugged, was. It was like a little bit gut wrenching, and then finding out afterwards was like, kudos to everyone involved. That was beautifully played. And you're right. The rugging is community asked for, and you faux provided it. It was a close call there. I remembered as well. The other observation I wanted to make, Vegas, was, so you decided, you and your wife decided that you need to start taking periodic holidays. What, just before you create one of like the biggest sinks of your time? That is perfect timing. I love it.
My wife is a mad one for holidays. So yeah, she's just, her timing is sometimes just, you can't, it just happens, and it all falls in line.
Impeccable.
My wife has caught wind of this, so now she's actually expecting something similar. So this kind of backfired a little bit on my end, because my wife now expects the same thing. She's like, "Hey, so how come Vegas is always out?" Because he sends me videos when they're out, and I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, actually, they do." And I said it myself. I'm like, "Oh, they do that like every month." She's like, "What do you mean they do it?" I'm like, "Yeah, they set a weekend that they go out every month." She's like, "So why don't you do that?" And I was like, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that."
Yeah, maybe it should be a worldwide thing. Every marriage should have that or partnership should have that deal.
Everything I'm hearing is that you two are going to the Las Vegas city, the actual place, to elope. That's all I'm hearing here.
So I like to joke saying that I'm going to Vegas to meet Vegas, which is kind of funny if you think about it. And again, he is right. I am kind of crashing this because I've never been to Vegas, nor did I ever care to go to Vegas. The only reason I'm going is because Vegas is going there. So it'll be interesting. I'm just along for the ride. I won't do anything. Maybe they make me the designated driver or whatever, whatever they want to do. I'm going to get some embarrassing videos so I can blackmail him with it or whatever not. That's kind of my plan.
No problem to me.
Yeah. Carl from Vegas Pool, the big attraction. That's
well, the other piece that's exciting to me. The other reason we're going there is with my pool itself, I've got a silent partner as for the pool side of things. So he's just a financial guy. So I'm meeting him as well. So from my point of view, it's also very exciting to meet up and see him as well. So for me, this whole trip was 2 years ago planned, but with COVID, it's just been put off, and the timing's now unreal.
Yeah. Hosky Vegas, thanks so much for, I suppose, like the deeper dive into the Philhoskophy, the Techoskology of everything behind you guys. I did reach out to the Hosky community briefly. I tend to like dip my toes in and then very quickly go out, because I'm more of a lurker, to be honest, than a real active poster on all these social media places. So
I'm gonna preempt you, Pernis, for me.
Pernis, yeah, nice. We've got it in the building. All right, I'll leave. I'll direct these ones to you, Vegas, then I'll jump over to you, Hosky. So yeah, we can keep them relatively short, I suppose. So I got a question from $Pulkes Shrooms. He asks, what led you to believe this idiot Hosky was right about a meme coin? And are you surprised at how big it's gotten?
The reason why I believed in him is because he supported my daughter. So anybody that supports my family are okay people, really. And what was the second part of that? Sorry.
Are you surprised at how big it's gotten?
Tremendously, yeah. I called him the idiot on the day he asked me, and I sat on the idea for about, I think it was a week and a half, maybe even 2 weeks, and I just minted one of the other big projects. Had a Friday evening, and I said, "Go on, we'll just put it together." And I pieced the code together. Within an evening, we posted it up, and then we had that interesting first Saturday. So, wow. Yeah, can't believe it.
Nice. LV Taylor 15 asks, why are they all of a sudden always on vacation? So is there anything more than behind the actual eloping? Is there
with my wife, it's just the thumbs firmly on the forehead there. Yeah. Yep. If you don't take, as I say, two things I always tell people: one, family is important, and two, if it's not a profit if you don't take the profit. So there is, and I'm going to make sure that this rumor is taken away. This sudden going away is self-funded and has nothing to do with what we've been doing with the Hosky side. before Hosky came along, I was highly successful on my own, but it's just things have now just become stupidly. It's unreal. Is the word unreal?
Yeah. Pancake with I think like brackets astronaut new meta asks, do you do anything besides generate Excel spreadsheets?
Yes, in fact, I've now got Python to generate the spreadsheet, so it's getting even better. I'm becoming even more nerdy.
Add the complexity on top. Keep going. Be Loud asked, does anything Hosky do actually get on your nerves?
Yes. I'm always being told off. And he knows exactly what I mean, and I'm not going further.
Well, it does seem like you had the almost like Juan and I have a kind of fundamental difference as well with regards to the podcast, which is I'm sort of more like a little bit of a perfectionist. Like I like things all in neat order. If there's a spelling mistake, which he regularly makes, I'm the one triple checking, double checking, just wording and even small things like that. And he had a real good point a bunch of times where he's like, this doesn't matter. Like this, no one notices these small little bullcrap things. And it's actually good to have someone who's quite opposite, even though there can be a bit of tension, that merging of like you were saying, sort of dampening down the bits where you're trying to get everything exactly right.
As a programmer, and most programmers will agree with that, if you're a good programmer, you will always worry about all the bugs and all the issues. The beauty that's been really of this whole thing is when Hosky said to me, don't worry about the bad refunds, the bad code that you wrote that gave the money back when it was wrong. And don't worry about the fact that you have to bring the Doggie Bowl down or you have to stop doing that, because that's what the community is expecting at the moment, because we've never told people this was going to be a website that you go and it's going to be 24/7. It's going to give you this. So it is a different. But for me, I like yourself, I'm very OCD over stuff. It's got to be. My problem is I not only with the OCD, I also suffer. What's the term with language? My brain gets very mixed up at times with. My daughter's got it. Dyslexia.
Dyslexia.
So I often will type something, and then when I look about, I didn't type that, but it's come out that way, and then I worry about the spelling. And I agree with other people about Twitter. There's nothing worse than then not being able to edit the tweet. So it drives me mental.
Vegas has gotten in trouble a couple times, and we joke about it because he takes things sometimes a little too personal when it was like there was some sarcasm behind it. So we've actually banned him from like Discord and Twitter a couple times where you're like, you need to take a break, step away, which is hilarious. And when you bring up about like differences, I think that's what's made us successful. He's the smart, I'm the stupid. And by that, I mean, he handles all the tech side. I handle all of the marketing, all of the memes. I grew up with memes. I grew up on 4chan. I grew up with, all of these things back in the day, GeoCities. If you're that old to know what that is, Netscape Navigator was my first internet browser. So all of this is, I think what's made us so successful is because we have such different backgrounds that we can, work together. It's like yin and yang. We kind of complement each other from that aspect.
Yeah. You're just saying like he's the smart one and the other's the idiot. I'm obviously the idiot because I'm dealing with Hosky, but if Juan is the smart one in our relationship, like Jesus, we're screwed.
and I think also we've got that capability of also saying, hang on a minute, and saying and just being honest with the other as well. There's been times when we've had that cold, brutal discussions when I think, like a marriage, it is like my wife. I often have to say, look, hun, that's not acceptable. And then you have that argument and then you all moan and then you all sulk. And then 3 days later, you all agree, okay, we'll move on now.
Yeah.
We've had a few of those and it's been healthy. It's like, I'm a very like non-caring person. So, when it happens, it happens, if there's an issue or whatever. And there's been a few times where Vegas like, look, this is the reality of this and you need to like come to terms with it. If this doesn't get done, then this can happen. And it's like, oh, well, I guess you're right. So I need to be a little more focused on the task at hand rather than just be nonchalant about, everything, which is my normal operating mode.
For sure, for sure. You guys also did bring up like the transparency as well, and I really enjoyed that you had the I think it's 5 ADA handles with the like $HOSKY.tbd, $HOSKY. Et cetera, because that's, you know, those small little steps which you think like, oh, does it really matter? I think in the end those sort of small things do actually make a big difference.
Yeah, so in this case, I mean, we had discussed it in the past and we kind of forgot about it. And then just recently discussed it again. It's like, I think at first Vegas like, yeah, let's not do that right now. We don't have the time. You know, obviously, he's the one that has to do a lot of the back end stuff.
And let me be honest. I also said no, that's a bad idea at first, but yeah. So
yeah,
you can
but when we look back at it, it's like, yeah, I mean, we got nothing to hide. We don't mind if people see where those funds are going. I mean, just recently I pulled out 1 trillion from the from the meme acquisition, which I guess you can call it the growth budget, because there's a couple of projects that I'm going to be working with, and they need Hosky to support what they're doing. One of them is an existing partnership, and I won't give too many details, but there will be additional incentives for that partnership. And that 1 trillion also goes to, or that meme acquisition budget also goes to compensate our mods sometimes. They put in a lot of work. They have to put up with the community. And I've actually tipped the mods publicly open on Discord. So it's not something that, it's unknown. And that is where that comes from. So they do get varying compensation depending on how much time they spend on Discord. Some of them are there like 24/7. More recently, Type Biggie has been there for like what seems like she lives on the Discord, because I wake up and she's there. I go to bed and she's there, and it's like, do you have a life? Which I think the answer is no. She'll be hearing that from here. But yeah, so we do compensate our mods. When they signed up, we all signed them up as volunteers. We did make it clear there is not going to be any sort of pay, but after seeing the amount of time they have to spend, we're giving them, I mean, I guess we're not paying them, we're giving them zeros. Exactly. So even if we give them billions of zeros, they're still getting nothing. Yeah. So I guess they're the idiots in this case. The Hosky mod sweatshop, you heard it here first.
For sure. In the interest of transparency as well, you guys actually sent us a chunk of Hosky twice, I think. Once was I mean, yeah, you can go search through the old videos, and we talked about it a couple of times, so it's not unknown. And funnily enough, it's actually hard to give away. There's been surprisingly amounts of because I've been trying to do it here in Brisbane with the Cardano meetups, which I go to pretty regularly, and somewhat online as well. I made a video because there's like a famous Bitcoin video, which was like a guy saying like, just please buy, I think it was $10 worth of Bitcoin. And if you'd done it when he said, it would have been worth, grands and grands. And I was doing a joke one, which was like, I won't even do that. I'll just give you Hosky. And still not many people have taken me up on it.
Yeah, and I think I remember the time, because I've been a very keen fan of your podcast. So there was a couple of subjects you touched on, and it just resonates with where my brain is and where I think. So for openness, that's what I gave you. I remember talking to Hosky and giving you the Hosky and a bit of ADA just to cover the fees as well, so you could distribute that out. And just to be clear for anybody watching it wasn't to try to sponsor or to buy or anything. It was just purely so when we hear of people trying to spread the word, it's definitely in different continents. So that was one of the things with the pools, where we've now gone to 17 pools around the world. I know mine's in there. And I will, for the record, even to this day, the only reason the Vegas pool was in there was because my delegators got really angry. And then they had to go to the community to get me to agree to actually put the Vegas pool into the rug pools.
Yeah, you got voted in, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Because I didn't want to participate. That's not what this is about. And it's very clear. And it resonates with something else you discussed on about that whole argument about the multi-pools. I was one of the small rug pools, one of the small SPOs right from the start that have always been, because of the way I am, have always been taken the wrong way, that I'm causing trouble and I'm just jealous because big pools have grown, etc. But because my fairness part of my brain couldn't cope, that's where I was getting into Twitter storms with people and discussion. And that's why HOSKY 6 months later has come along and enabled me to be involved in something that actually has been able to demonstrate what I was trying to say to people, and to say, this is not right. This is not the way that the ecosystem should work. And now things are improving. And that's why when I saw your podcasts and giving you some of the HOSKY, it's to spread it out into the continents. And I know HOSKY, you were instrumental of picking South Africa, wasn't it? And a couple of other continents as well. So we were quite keen to grow out into the different regions, not just to be UK, US, and maybe a bit of Europe focused. It was to grow. And definitely I can see there is a bigger group in Australia, because I've got a whole bunch of them on my Telegram now. And I think getting out into other parts of the world is really key as well, into Africa maybe as well, and further out. It's not just a local crypto for the affluent areas of the world. It should be for everywhere, and growing into every space and into every continent is so vital in my mind. But I know Charles talks about it, but I don't think people see the value in it. I think people only see in front of their noses that it's something we buy now and later on it's going to be worth more, and then I will sell it and make some profit. People aren't seeing the use cases of what you can actually build, what you can actually create from it. And I've been, just as a sideline, with my IT contracting over the last 7 years. I was full-time for 23 years with one company, then 7 years contracting. I'm talking to some of those contracting companies now that I worked with in the past, showing some of the key chief architects that I've worked with, showing and demonstrating them solutions you can build off the ADA chain. And they're quite amazed that actually where I'm now able to bridge the gap between crypto and their solutions, I'm able to demonstrate they can remove systems from their portfolios that cost them millions and millions of pounds. And it can reduce it just down to the cost of ADA transactions. But the benefit is you've got 24-hour systems that are always there, always reliable and never going away. And it's that people aren't looking at the white, because of the skills and the technology and where people's backgrounds come from. But people like myself can see where this is going, can see, when we say, people like myself say, we can see what Charles is doing, where that whole wider picture is going. It even to this day, it amazes me where technology is going to go, where companies are going to go with it. And it's not just an argument against the banks. And it's not, in my view, it's not about trying to dethrone the financial systems. It's actually the impact that the internet has had on everybody in terms of mobile use and knowledge, getting hold of data and knowledge at just the tip of your finger when you need it. And I remember being at college in the 90s, so I am that old, so forgive me. I remember having one teacher that inspired us, and she kept on, and at the time she drove us mad, and she was saying, one day you will be able to go in, you'll walk home, you'll turn on your machine and you'll be able to find any information that you ever possibly want. And we all went, you're all mad. And then she explained what at the time was HTML, so the scripting language for websites. And she was explaining, this is all coming. And this was before computers were connected together, before they were networked, and dial-up was only starting to become a thing. But I can already see that picture that she had with us with where the internet is now. I can now see from a financial point of view, but also just from a general system point of view, all the different types of systems I've touched on, how we can migrate away from these dedicated systems to a crypto-based solution, whether it's on-chain or off-chain or layer 2 or layer 1 or whatever. But I can actually see the picture. And there was an epiphany I had. It was back in 1920, as Cardano was starting to bring on the staking. It just dawned on me where we're going to go once the smart contracts evolve slightly more. It's that wider picture, and that's why I hope longer term the HOSKY token, we start tapping into some more of that to show people and demonstrate what other things could be built that not necessarily are just a financial incentive just to make money off a change of a flip of ADA from fiat to something else. There's more to it. So I know I'm rambling. This is going to be a quick, But for
No,
me,
that's all right.
you've triggered, again, it's triggered a whole bunch of other things that I've always wanted to step along to. And just to be very clear, that's when I talk to those chief architects, and they're listening to me, and they're going, do you want to come back? Do you want to come back? But I'm now ingrained into HOSKY's ruined it from that perspective, because there's more than 24 hours worth of work for me as there is, never alone trying to talk to other companies. But there is now, though, that networking is growing, and I'm getting people come back to me and saying, can you just tell me again how that works? And just as a last brief, I showed 2 or 3 of the guys the HOSKY token, did exactly the same as what we did with you, and gave them some ADA, gave them some HOSKY, and now they're owners of cash grabs, and they're owner of gnome skis, and now they're going in using the latest DEXs, and now they're looking at lending the NFTs, and it's just grown, and it's just that word of mouth from people that understand this technology from a wider point of view. The visionaries that can listen to visionaries like Charles saying this is where it's going to go, but then from my point of view, from an architect technical mind, I can see how the pieces now line up. I can see how the journey is going to get there. And it's not just a Cardano thing. And it's very important, because we get all these arguments about which chain's best. It doesn't matter. It's the technology. It's that whole open public ledger and being able to link those transactions up in a way that you can prove that whatever was written was provable. So you can then run systems based off those proofs. So for me, it's a fascinating area. And that's why I got out of contracting as an IT architect back in July last year, because I always knew that I want to be in the crypto space, but I don't want to work for just IOG, or I wouldn't want to work for, I want to work for myself, if you understand that concept.
For sure. Yeah, there's so many things tied up with that. You know, it's that's I always sort of say, whenever I'm doing my money stuff right, it's boring. Like, I don't want money to be fun or interesting. It's when it's like, you know, I've got it locked in. I do my standard thing, and it's boring. That's when it's good. And then that leaves time for all the way more exciting things about crypto, which is, you know, how can the world transform if, you know, there's a shift of capital from the Western countries into the developing countries, and, you know, what will Africans be able to do if they when they finally get, you know, access to a bank account, but not a standard bank account. It's going to be a wallet and things like that. So yeah, no, I share the enthusiasm, mate. It's the financial stuff, you know, like I'd be simultaneously happy if HOSKY ever became worth anything, and then also, you know, kind of disappointed, because it would sort of sour the fun that I'm having now. But HOSKY, we'll get into some rapid questions for you, mate. We've got one from the fancy Kenny. Have you had dinner with Gal Gadot, or Gal Gadot? I'm not sure how to say her name.
No, not yet.
Notice
I said not yet.
I'm getting crashing that.
He'll be the third wheel. No, that has not happened yet. So we've all seen the incident that happened with the company that's using them, that Gal Gadot has endorsed, or at least the agent. They did. I've been talking to them, kind of giving them advice on what not to do when you try to engage, become a serious project. So maybe that could happen in the future. Who knows? Yeah.
Maybe she'll let you eat from her steak or something at the table when you're a grown up big dog. I've got one from how do you say this? What's the dollar signs? Dollar sign humanovation, I think. And he asked, where is the roadmap?
It's the brown paper. That's it.
Yeah.
The roadmap is. I mean, if you want, I can put a blank piece of paper and call it a roadmap, or the Doggie Bowl or something. Yeah, that's it.
Beautiful. We've got two here. One from B Loud is, are you a CIA agent?
Unlike Satoshi Nakamoto, who some people believe was actually Bitcoin being a government started thing, no, I am not a CIA agent. Not that I'm aware of. Maybe a canine.
Canine squad
police dog. Yeah, but not CIA. I don't believe they use dogs.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, and then the last one I've got for you, and I batched this one because it was a sort of multi one, but it was when. So just the question when big surprise, when road gnome races, and when $1.
So I will start with the when $1, and the answer to that is it should never happen. And if it does happen, that will show you how stupid people are. Sorry, how genius people are.
And how bad the US dollar is doing.
Right. I mean, although it's hard to compete with the US dollar, to be honest, with all the recent happenings. So it may actually happen.
Yeah.
Now, when surprise, it will be after Vegas. And this is for all the gnome ski holders. You want to hold gnomes before we announce it, because you will be twice as unfortunate to receive whatever it is that the surprise is. As far as when gnome races, I've already actually funded the that's part of that 1 trillion, not a lot of it obviously, went to the wallet of the team where you'll be able to raise your gnomes. So it's starting with gnomes. You'll be able to raise your gnomes on the Hornies Discord. So if you are not familiar with Hornies, it's an NFT project on Cardano. They've been around for a while. Fo, the artist for gnomes, is well acquainted with them. I believe he did some of their art. So they actually have races where you can race your NFTs and the winner gets a prize. In this case, it'll be Hosky. So I guess this is the official announcement of the races and where they're going to happen. So you want to go to the Hornies Discord. I'll try to post an actual announcement later on, or maybe I'll wait till Thursday when this is going live, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be able to race your gnomes, and cash grabs are also going to be part of that. They're still working on coding it because obviously we have 220,000, almost 18,000. Well, 218,000 currently.
Yes, you're correct.
So they're still working on that. The cash grabs will also be part of that, but it's starting with the gnome skis. So you heard it here first. You will be able to race your gnome skis on the heaps for the Hornies Discord.
Beautiful. And this ties in nicely with this question, also from Be Loud. Are you sponsoring a NASCAR team? And if not, what would be your pie in the sky partnership?
Ooh, pie in the sky partnership. Man, see, like I'm not a very big sports person whatsoever. So I'll also let Vegas answer his take. For me, it would probably be a football team, soccer, what most people call, or what they call it in the US. That would be ideal. And that would be my pie in the sky partnership. How about you, Vegas?
Yeah, for me, whilst we're talking, I've sadly got the snooker on the TV on the big screen and to the side of me, so that's why I keep looking up every now and again. So for me, I'm a mad keen snooker player. So for me, ultimate would be my idols now, Ronnie O'Sullivan, who's a famous snooker player here. I know in Australia you've got your I've forgotten his name now. Well,
it's funny. I actually know Ronnie O'Sullivan. Like I know that name versus the Australian one. So we'll go with him.
So for all of us like that are in the United States, what is snooker?
So snooker is like an oversized pool table with small balls, long table. So an American pool table will be 8 foot by 4, and the balls are about 2 to 3 inches. A snooker table is 12 foot by 6, and the balls are around 1.5 inches to 2 inches.
So you guys just try to double the size to.
So it's about a third extra on the table size, and half on the table size, and the balls are smaller and the pockets are tighter, and you've got more balls. So you've got 15 reds, and then yellow, green, brown, blue, pink, and black. So the game is significantly harder. People treat it more like a game of chess with a physical sport. It's a far more thinking man's type of game rather than just whack a few balls around and hope to get the 5 or 6 balls.
Pool is checkers, snookers is chess.
Yes.
That's a good way.
The English always upping the ante, and be careful.
Absolutely.
You can lose many hours.
There's no sportsmen. There's no sports arguments with any Australians here. No.
All right, I've got a couple of questions here, just for whoever wants to jump into them. We've got Hosky Believer. He asks, is TBD, or at least a portion of it, determined or already? If so, any sneak peeks?
No. The TBD will likely remain TBD for a while. We don't have any plans right now as to what we're doing with it. I mean, right now we still have, I think, 80 plus trillion left in the rug pools, and we still have 43 or 44 trillion in the growth budget, which again is used for partnerships or whatever not. So I don't see us having the need to even touch that anytime in the near future. It would have to be something pretty big coming along that would require that much. And again, it would be something that would be for the community, that would encourage the use of the Cardano ecosystem. It wouldn't be like, hey, let's throw a second Doggie Bowl up and let's match the price where it's half of what it's trading elsewhere. No, it's not going to be us trying to grab any additional ADA or nothing like that. It's going to be how can we use this to grow the Cardano community?
Yep. Beautiful, beautiful. This is from Sammy. He's got a sort of just bunch here. How did you guys actually meet? Hardest decision you've had to make, and who wears the pants in the relationship in your upcoming marriage?
I'll take the last one. Is dogs should not wear pants.
Okay, so Vegas, it's all on you then.
Yeah, we met, and I know that there's been other conversations out there. Hosky bought some of my daughter's Jess art NFTs, her early pieces, and the mutual trust became because he was buying and I was sending, and then he'd pay me when he could be bothered, and I would send him some more, and then he'd pay me more, and then. And the relationship was just nicely built. And then there was two parts to it.
The hardest decision you've had to make with regards to
Hosky. The hardest decision is, which is linked into that, is part of the Jess Art stuff. We did some promotional giveaways of the real canvases, and we've also sold some canvases. And I can't remember whether he won or whether he bought. And I think it was the latter. I think he bought, but it was. He's got one of the pieces of art that I absolutely love. And
Three Mountains.
Sorry?
It's the Three Mountains.
Yeah, and I'm absolutely gutted. So it's been very hard. It's been very hard to send out my daughter's canvases. And it's really, the more we send them out, the more I realise I like her artwork. And she'll forgive me for this saying, as a parent, you're just pleased that your children do whatever they're going to do in their world and they get on. But I couldn't see any talent in terms of art. I could see that her drawings were good and enjoyable, but as a parent, you just think, well, they're okay. But it's textured and it's just delightful. So yeah, there's one other canvas out there as well that I was absolutely got. I just nearly cried as it went out the door. I don't mind admitting. It was one of those, I didn't want it to go, but it was in a good cause because she's got her uni money, or a good chunk of her uni money. So the funding is going to be helpful for her.
Beautiful. Cardano saving the day again. I am part God. This is the last one, I suppose, multi one, which is how long will staking last? What are the plans after? What happens after the last minted cash grab?
Yeah, so I'll take that first one because I know we touched on it with the rug pool and the funds that we've got. And I'm sure Hosky will back me up, is I always had this plan that if we're going to do this staking, there's no point just doing it for a year, because once we stop doing it, there's no incentive for people to stay staking. Now, the only way that we can do that is, and you'll hear it, folks, if you haven't heard it before, but I have said this before, there was just over 100 trillion or so, I think it was about 120 allocated originally to staking. At some point, and we've still got to determine, but it might be a year's anniversary or it might be something else based on that. But the idea is we will go to the same method that we have with the Doggie Bowl, where we will go into a halving mechanism. By doing so, it means we can prolong this for a year of pain, or 5 years of pain, or even decades of pain, depending on where we want it to go. So, and that means we don't have to take any more funds from anything else. It's just purely that.
Yep. Hosky, how about the any plans afterwards, after the cash grabs?
So we have a lot of plans currently. There's a lot of talk going on. An integral part of what's coming is going to be that website. It's going to be used for the staking aspect of it, but there's also some other things under the hood that we're working on. It's a concept at the moment. We're still not ready for that. And like Vegas has always said, is we're not going to promise you anything until it's ready to go, and you guys will be able to use it. Don't expect much. I mean, it's just to add a little bit of fun to the community. So don't expect, any utility. Expect only futility from HOSKY. And if that's where you start, you will be very pleased with what is to come.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And okay, this is just a personal one from me, which was memes and fun. What's been your favorite meme to emerge from the HOSKY world?
Ooh, that's a hard one. There are so many good ones. But honestly, I think my favorite is the HOSKY milk. Just the idea of having dog milk is hilarious and disturbing. It's been going on since before Milkomeda, so it's not anything new.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's been a staple of the community. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy that Milkomeda would be milk related, and that wrapped HOSKY is milk HOSKY. So like HOSKY milk became a reality, and I don't know who started it. I know early on Hans was one of the ones that was using it a lot. So I'm not sure if it was him or it may have been like Busy HOSKY or one of those that have been around the community a long time that started with the HOSKY milk. And when the tip bot came out, because you can add any comment after it, so you could always tip HOSKY and then add the word milk to it. It was interesting. I think that's my favorite just because it became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, that's manifestation right there. Someone's been reading The Secret. How about you, Vegas?
As been touched on before, I have problems actually relating to memes at all. So from my point of view, this entire space, you talked about painful. This is painful for me because I don't quite get it. I don't know. My brain doesn't allow me to gauge when you're being real to being not real or not serious and serious. I have enjoyed the Pernest-Wernest type debate going on. I find that hilarious. And the other thing that I actually loved the other day, and it's more from the technical point of view, is the GIF that's going around at the moment that was, I think it was from, the 90s film with all the creatures crawling across. It's the aliens that attack and then you fight back. Yep. But somebody's put all the dog faces on every single one. To do that must have taken hours.
Yeah.
I can't think
that's definitely one of my favorite ones recently because it looks hilarious.
It's just amazing. It's the whole army, the HOSKY army, they called it, but it was just, I'm trying to think of the film. It's a brilliant film that I've got to sit down with Jess and watch, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't Starship Troopers, was it? Or...
That's it. That's the one. That's it. Yeah, that's the one.
Nice. Yeah.
It's one of my all-time favorite films from the 90s. It's just one of those you can just sit down and watch it. It's got the story. It's just all pants, but it's just brilliant.
Yeah, for sure.
Painstakingly put those faces, and it moves so smoothly. That's what you see the different GIFs and the videos, and you'll see the jerkiness in them. But I don't know if they've used AI or something else, but it's perfection. It is perfect. Whoever's done that should be very proud.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, for me, it's been, I guess, like the ability to even create my own memes and get it into there. Because I wouldn't even say, like, I'm not a meme creator per se, but like Busy HOSKY, that's actually one where I say in my day-to-day life, like, I'll just be like, very, very busy HOSKY today. And the fact that I managed to get my own, like, little artistic creation into the new cash grabs, the volume 2 was beautiful as well. I really need to mint some more to try and get one of those because I don't have one yet, but I'll work on that.
I do believe it's on the higher rarity tier too. So
yeah, it definitely is.
It's not going to be an easy one. Don't ever go.
I've done that. As HOSKY will say, I'm becoming addicted because of the Jess art, because we injected the Jess art into the background. I started buying some just to get the background, and now I'm addicted. Don't do it. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
So we can say that. So we'll break this. We had not purchased any of our own NFTs with our personal funds. ever until the April Fools happened. That's what got me into it, because I wanted one with a clown hat, or I wanted the rug pool, the one that says, Fox Rugs Survivor. I wanted one of those. So I did a single pool, and I was like, okay, cool. What did I get? Okay, I like that one. I'm like, I'm just going to pull 10 and call it. I pulled 10. And I'm like, oh, I got what I wanted, but I still want more. So I pulled 10 more. And I think at one point, I think I'm sitting on like 40 of them because, again, I just wanted the April Fools, the version 2.1 or whatever version we're on now. Those additional traits were amazing. Shout out to our artist, the big Hosky.
Yeah, I wanted to actually just end with that. Shout outs to people who are sort of behind the scenes and deserving of credit.
Yeah, I mean, the community is amazing, honestly. The artists have done a great job. If you look at the original traits to now, like they've gotten so much better. Because at first we wanted it to be as crappy as possible, honestly. But we've started to add additional things. There's animated backgrounds and such. So shout out to them. Shout out to Be Love or Be Loud now, whatever his name is. Because the rug, the idiot games were amazing and fun. And they're planning on doing more now. And again, he did this all on his own. So it's the community that's been doing all this. He kind of came to me, he's like, hey, can you help us out with prize support? I'm like, yeah, sure, we can throw some Hosky at people. But the whole setup was awesome. And that was the version 1. He's working on another one. He's doing a lot on the back end, which is awesome to see, because again, it's the community doing this. Geo George, he's always on Twitter. I can always wake up to like 30 to 50 notifications overnight of him posting, him and Millionaires always competing on their Hosky shaped food on Twitter. And obviously all of the rug pools, they've all been great. Some of them have been inactive. Yes, I'm talking to you guys. So yeah, it's the community has made Hosky what it is today. Like me and Carl could not have turned Hosky into what it is today had it not been for the community.
Awesome. Okay, so Hosky and Carl from the Vegas pool, you've both been very magnanimous with your time, and I really do appreciate not only the time you've spent with me here today, but like everything you've done. It's honestly the amount of joy, laughter, like I said, the changes in my own behavior. It's all been really fantastic, and I do just want to congratulate you and thank you personally for everything you've done. For like last recommendations, if people want to get into the Hosky ecosystem, if they want to join your pool, the Vegas pool, Carl, could you give us some handy tips, some things that they should do?
Go for delegate to the others. from my point of view, this is where I stand, and that's why I say in this part of this community, I run a pool like everybody else in this, and it's all the pools run and operate in the same way. The only difference between the operators, the physical protocol and the way it runs is pretty much the same for everybody. So the only difference are the people behind those pools. Some of those are technical like me and have experience, and I don't mind saying it, I'm crap at marketing. I don't market, I can't market, and I feel embarrassed to market myself at times. So I like to shy away. But the pool that I run is self-sustaining, and it was self-sustaining before Hosky came along. And that's mainly because I've made enough networks with enough people that I've got it funded to a point that it's sustainable. It's not going to be brilliant. It's not amazing. I'd love it to be saturated like some of those other pools, but I accept it's not going to be. But my bigger problem, or my bigger cause, is to make sure that the other smaller pools around there get involved and invited to participate. And that's part of the thing I didn't like about this community as a whole. If there's anything that's bad, this our whole argument about pools, big pools, saying that small pools are jealous and not helping or so forth. The way that I came through IT was that we were mentored. You would join a big corporation and you would sit under talented people that would mentor you through the process. But it wouldn't just be about mentoring and showing you how to do the job or how to do the work. they'd also support you. They would also market you in a way that they would say, I know that person, and look, he's good for this or he's good for that. And you don't see that in this community, which is a real shame. And it's something I've always asked for. With the bigger pools and with the bigger multi-pools, I've always found it shocking that they don't take smaller pools under their wings and help grow them, rather than setting up and spinning up another one to take a little bit more money or a little bit. They're not trying to harness that mentoring aspect to bringing other operators together. So it sounds daft and counterintuitive. People will come to Vegas or they won't come to Vegas. I personally, I do care, but I don't. It's not going to affect my operation because it's big enough now to operate on its own. But if we can keep growing the ecosystem and keep bringing other pool operators in, it chips away at those pools that think it's not acceptable to bring other pools in, that are trying. We get this rhetoric of soon we're going to get the big corporations coming in and they're going to set up their pools like Binance and everything else, and it's going to push everybody out. It won't. If you bring small pools up to a level that at least they're minting regular blocks, as long as they're making enough money to keep that pool going, it doesn't matter how many other corporations you have come on board, they will still continue to mint blocks. And that's what people seem to forget. The protocol is designed, even though that we've got 3,000 pools out there or so, eventually, if those pools continue operating, even if they're not making money, at some stage they will mint blocks. They will get paid. It's just the hit and miss over 73 epochs over a year is so vast. You might only see one block in a whole 73, and that might give you your 5%. And then people go, well, that's not good. So from my point of view, just pushing out, splitting up your pool, splitting up your wallets, delegating out into individual pools, is a win for me. I'd much prefer to a whale come to me and say, Carl, I could have given you 64 million or whatever it is at the moment, saturation. And they say, well, do you know what? I made 64 individual wallets. And I went to, I've forgotten what it's rebranded to now, but we've gone to one of these wallets that enable
Eternal.
Eternal, thank you. In Eternal, you can go with one ledger. You can go in there, set up an account, and then you can spin up 16, 20, 30, 40 wallets, and it all operates off the one key. This whole aspect of not being able to delegate to multi-pools has gone away, to different pools has gone away, but people don't still understand that concept. We're getting there slowly. So coming back to your question, I'm not here to market Vegas, and that's why I tried to keep Vegas out of the rug pools. It was only because of the community and my delegators that went mad and said, we want this worthless token. We want this worthless turt. Because why are you giving it to everybody else and not giving it to us as part of your delegate? And they were right, but I don't want it to be about my pool. It's about everybody. It's not even about our HOSKY. And people again fail to understand. It's not about our individual pools. It's not about the HOSKY project. It's not about the Space Buds or the other big projects. It's the ecosystem itself. If the ecosystem has people growing solutions, growing pools, and have pools that run and operate in a fair way and earn people money, everything else comes along. Use comes along, utility comes along, and eventually what everybody else wants is the price. But people forget they put the price first. It's about the investment. It's about quick bucks. And I often tell people it's not, for me, this has nothing to do with money. I invested in ADA in 17 when it between 10p and £1.10 at the all-time high. And I bought Jess in at £1.10. So I've always felt bad. And of course, we saw it all the way go down to 3p in 18, 19. And I was telling everybody, I'm still buying, I'm still investing. And of course, then we've then come back through the all-time high again. So the waves are there. It's just people are coming in at different times with different expectations of what the price is. If you look with a long-term 5, 10, 15 years, the price is going to get there, with the exception of if ADA fails. If the chain fails for some inherent reason that's going to stop it, I personally don't believe the price is going to fail to go up eventually. We're going to get this peaks and troughs, and that's the way financial markets work. So I'm not here to try to shield my own pool. I'm not here to try to get people to come to my pool. What I'm trying to do is get people to understand the wider implications of your own actions and your own choice in the space. By you delegating into good pools and wider pools and moving around and splitting up money, it improves the whole ecosystem. And eventually you get that networked effect where everything's interrelated. And so the chain can't fail. And the chain can't fail, as Hosky's pointed out. We're so invested in this already. As long as it doesn't fail, we'll be in it forever because the finance is there, the money's there, it's protected our own assets, it's our own investment. Everything else has just come along and it will be a bonus. And at some stage, we'll get a new all-time high, and then Hosky and I will be buying our yachts, and we'll be buying, I don't know, I'll be buying Vegas. I won't be just going to Vegas, we'll buy Vegas. Do you know what? It's that whole, people are just so short-sighted. They're so narrow-minded about, to make a system and an ecosystem, it involves everybody. It's not just individuals, and people won't get on, and people will argue, and there will be a lot of people out there just scamming the system and walk away and run away with it. They're bad, but there are also lessons to be learned from there. And that's just one last message on this. This is what really drives me mad, because I joined in 17, and I've openly admitted this to people before. I fell very early on for one of the ETH scams, because I had I've been coding for a company for 24 hours or so, and then I saw one of these ETH things, and I sent a tiny bit of ETH just to test it, and as soon as I did it, I realized. But those people that admit that they've been caught with these type of scams get ridiculed and I think get really bad time, where people don't give them the understanding. Yes, even the greatest minds and the greatest people can fall for scams. The scam that I fell for, you could see so much of it looked so real when there was people chatting and you could chat to them. But when I spoke to people, I felt that experience of, oh, no, you're just stupid. You're just thick. How can you possibly fall for that? And it's because people don't open up and admit that they've gone through that process. And it's easy from a high and low. You've only got to be caught at the wrong time and you can be scammed. And it's getting that message out to people that the best people in the world and the worst people in the world will get scammed at some stage if you don't have your defenses up all the time.
Yeah, well, we're all human. You know, the factors that combine us, that you know, allow me to connect with you and to connect with Hosky are the same things. If we were different creatures, it wouldn't really work. Like, I can't have a conversation with the chimpanzee because I don't know what his values are, you know. And similar sort of thing for me. I the first time I saw one of those send 2 ADA in and we'll double it back sort of thing, there was a primitive part of my brain which was like, free money. Wow. Yeah. What a great idea. And of course, and thankfully, you know, another smarter part of my brain kicked in and was like, you know, there's no such thing as free money, like a free lunch. There's you always got to pay somehow in some way, whether that be time, energy, effort, you know, reputation, whatever it is. So yeah, 100% agreed on that. And yeah, for me, it was always like, if you're getting into Cardano or ADA, I don't want to be getting out of it. So the price is almost irrelevant in many ways, because if I can't use it in 20 years time, that would sort of mean to me that it's kind of failed, even if it was worth X amount. Yeah. Hosky, any final thoughts from you? Anything you want to add or request from people?
Add or request? I would request for them to stop using Hosky anything, but we know that isn't going to happen at this
Just
point.
Watch me.
I'm pretty sure we've already crossed 100,000 wallets. I haven't checked in a while, and I think like 22,000 NFT wallets, which is bonkers. And as far as when it comes to kind of what Vegas said, you heard it here first. He fell for one of the scams, so hope fun of him. Just kidding. No, I mean, it's part of crypto. I guess I can thank MMOs for teaching me that If somebody is standing in the town square saying that they're gonna, you trade them your armor and they're gonna make it better, it's not true. They ran away with it because it happened to me a few times. So that's kind of where my financial keenness comes from, is
a good
games.
lesson.
And it's a lot easier to lose an in-game item than it is to lose actual, ADA that's worth something. Be careful out there. There's a lot of people that are after your ADA. They're going to promise you a lot, and they're not going to deliver anything. Careful with meme tokens, especially. They're often pumps and dumps. We are 100% dump and dump, so that's why you will be safe. It will always go to zero. If you start with that, then you'll understand that it's not even worth owning any of it. But if you like memes, if you like to laugh, if you like to spend countless hours spamming on Discord, then the Hosky community is definitely going to be the best place to go. You can join by discord.gg/Hosky. That's the link that will always get you into that place. But like always, we recommend you don't do that. It's probably a bad idea. But no, thank you to the community. Honestly, this project would be a complete and utter failure if it wasn't for the community. Vegas and I can't do anything for Hosky that to the level that the community has done. Again, there's been a lot of players out there, a lot of influential accounts that interacted with us early on that kind of joked around. And, the Hosky would not be where it's at if it wasn't for those individuals. They know who they are. I talk to them almost on a daily basis. And again, the little guys too on Twitter. I mean, we have a small army of idiots, and they all know that the term idiot is an endearing term for this community. It is not an insult. If I ever call you a genius, then I'm insulting you. But overall, thanks to the Hosky community, thanks to all of our rug pools, thanks to everybody who's given us a chance. We would not be here without them. And we're here to hopefully entice people to come to Cardano for the memes and stay for the network experience. So Beautiful. There are certain niches that some people can't fill. And I think a meme coin has its own niche in the blockchain. And we're grateful for the community for putting us in the spot that we're at today.
100% agreed.
Can I also point out, that's right, based on that scamming side as well, just remember that we will always let people know the projects we're involved with. We've starting to see explosions of NFTs and popular tokens coming out. From our perspective, we will always say if we're involved with a collab or whether it's our project. And just coming onto Discord or something to ask about projects if you think we're involved or not. It's just, from our point of view, we can't, like Charles and everybody else, we can't stop these scammers coming along, and we can't stop. And there are times when projects look brilliant that may look or seem or have a name that's related, and we may not have even come across it at that stage. So from our point of view, we stay out of what's right and good for you and what's not. We will just be very clear. We will always let you know when we're dealing with a certain project. And again, from my point of view, from a Vegas point of view, when I'm allowed to talk about projects that I'm involved with, I will disclose that as well. Obviously, there are some projects I'm working under NDAs. There's other projects that haven't formed. I have a very strict policy of taking people through KYC and anti-money laundering processes myself for my own company. So I'm very strict on the projects I do work with and don't work with, just from a point of view of protecting myself and protecting the project. So I just wanted to end that on just be very careful out there with what's coming out, because on a daily basis, we'll see one or two of these things pop up. And my heart thinks, oh God, people are going to buy this or get scammed by this, and we have nothing to do with it. So you'll always hear it from us. And if it's not named by us, then you know it's not by us.
For sure. Positivity, optimism, and then also a little bit of common sense and caution is very useful. Vegas and Hosky, I really do appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on the Mere Mortals podcast.